What's up, guys? It's the end of May here in the Sierra Mountains, and the ski season is just about wrapping up. When the ski season wraps up, don't just take your board and chuck it in the garage. There are some steps you can take to preserve the life of your board, keep your base super healthy and gliding effortlessly on the snow, and that'll make you happy. So let's take those steps before the season ends to store our board properly. I have the 2020 Super Big here. It's the board I've been riding for the last few months of the season. Starting to be one of my favorite boards, but we'll talk about that another time. So I've got the Super Big here. We're gonna lay it down on the desk. And one of the first things I like to do is just go ahead and take my binders off. Taking those binders off is gonna relieve some stress on the inserts of your board. It's not critical, but I think it's beneficial. So I always at least loosen the bindings of my board. I'm just gonna take them straight off. That way it's easier for me to store my board where I live. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna rip these bindings off here. And while you've got the screwdriver in your hand in front of your board with your bindings, it's best to just go ahead and tighten up or check all the bolts on your bindings. Unions, especially the heel strap, this bolt right here is typically loose. Go ahead and tighten all the bolts up on your bindings. That way next year, when you're all excited and you go to mount your board up, you'll be ready to go. All right, so I've got a clean rag here. I've got some Simple Green. It says Windex, definitely Simple Green. And I'm just gonna clean the top sheet of my board. You may not think this is important, but I think it is important to keep your board and all of your equipment looking good. And it just helps preserve the life of it, and it allows you to ride your equipment longer, and definitely helps. So I'm gonna clean this bad boy off. Some Simple Green, not a whole lot, and just wipe it off. Another thing I really like to do is the inserts. Especially if you ride late in the spring, there's a lot of dirt and grime all around the mountain and whatnot. And sometimes the inserts can get little rocks and pebbles in there, and they can kind of make your binding come loose while you're riding. So if you can take an air compressor and blow out all your inserts, or you can just, the old-fashioned way, just blow on them. See if you can knock any debris out of there. I've definitely shot miniature rocks and dirt and debris out of people's inserts before, and it can definitely help keep your binding secure to your board. So go ahead, wipe off that top sheet, clean out your inserts. If you can, use an air compressor to blow them out. If not, just use your hot, stinky breath and blow out any dirt or grime that's in there. And that's looking good for the top sheet. Like I said, it's all pretty basic. It doesn't have to be done for this top sheet maintenance, but I really think it's worth getting that dirt and grime off your top sheets, keeping your board look fresh, and it also allows you to be aware of what type of damage is going on with your board. When you clean it, you kind of get up close on every little piece of it, and you recognize, you know, oh look, I've got a little chip right here, and maybe there's gonna get water in it, and maybe it will start rotting the core of my board, and you can just stop all that by putting a little piece of epoxy on there. So just cleaning your board just raises your awareness on your equipment. All right, so we got the top sheet done. We're gonna flip this bad boy over. This is when it starts getting good. The first thing I do when I flip my board over is I'm gonna look at my rails. I'm gonna see if there's any rust buildup on my rails or anything like that. This board, this is my baby, and I take care of my board, so there is no rust on this board. But typically, people will have little problem spots of rust. You can take a stone here, like a deburr stone, and you can just rub off that rust. That way it doesn't corrode your edges and it doesn't eat the edge away on your board. Especially if you're about to store it in a garage or closet for 6 months, you want to go ahead and knock that rust off now so it doesn't just keep corroding during storage. So like I said, my board, super mint. I take care of my board. I don't have any rust, but if I did, I would use this little polish stone to remove the rust. And we're looking pretty good here. So that's that with the rails. After the rails, we're gonna look at the base of the board. Before I actually do the storage wax, I like to look at my board and see if there's any like dirt or grime deposits going on in my base. If there is, I'll take a rag again and just wipe off the dirt. At least at a minimum, wipe your base off with a rag just so you get any big particles off of your base right there. If you got some problem areas, you can take a wire brush. And a wire brush, you can scrub the problem areas and try to get that dirt to come out of the pores of your base. You can also take some, I don't have any right now, some base cleaner and you can put the base cleaner on there, and that helps absorb the wax and help you wipe off some of the dirt and grime. So once you get your base of your board nice and clean, whether you have to use the wire brush or some citrus cleaner, or if your base is pretty mint, sometimes you can just get away with a rag wipe down. So once that is all mint and clean, we're going to go ahead and start our storage wax. To start our storage wax, we're going to plug in our iron. Always make sure your iron is hot but not smoking. Alright, well, while that iron is heating up here, I went ahead and took my bindings, folded them down, put them back together, made them all nice and neat. That doesn't matter so much, store those however you like. But I did want to talk about your boots. You know, usually you leave your boots like this, you just stick your foot out of them, kind of escape the squeeze of your boot, and then they're all kind of blown out like this. It's definitely best to go ahead, make sure your tongue is sitting where it's supposed to, and just lace your boots up properly for storage. That way it helps retain the shape of the boot here, which is going to give you longer boot life, which is great. So we're going to go ahead, lace these back up. Whether you have a BOA or lace system, just tie those bad boys up. Get them nice and firm, get them in that shape that they're supposed to be in while they're on your foot. Got that right there. They'll take up less room when you're storing them, which, you know, that really doesn't mean too much, but the real kicker is, you know, they're going to help retain their form, which is super crucial because boots are not cheap. And when you find a good boot that fits your foot, you want it to last as long as possible. And just by lacing them up properly for the few months that you're on vacation from your snowboard will really help your boots out. So we've got those laced up properly. That's awesome. Another thing I want to talk about is your goggles. When the season ends, some people, I don't know if you're one of these people, will just take their goggles and chuck them with their board in the garage or wherever. Don't leave your goggles in your car for the season or in a garage. Try to keep them somewhere with climate control inside your house. Otherwise, the glue can kind of rot and you'll end up having to buy a new pair of goggles, which is great. Come buy a new pair of goggles from us. But if you want to preserve the life of your goggles, you know, take care of them. That's kind of the whole theme of this video, is you just want to take care of your gear and it will just last longer. And as we all know, all this gear is really expensive and a lot of us really cherish this gear. So you definitely want to take care of it and have it last as long as possible. So we're going to go ahead and continue on to our storage wax. We just laced up our boots. We got our bindings all put back together. Our iron is now nice and hot. When you're doing your storage wax, it's going to be just like a regular wax, except you're going to want to use warm or all temperature wax, preferably. Any wax will work, but warm wax or all temperature wax is preferable. And we're going to go ahead and just melt on a generous amount of wax onto the base of the board here. Just like that. A lot of this wax will absorb into the base throughout the summer. So make sure you just put an extra fat glob of wax on there because it will look real globby in the beginning of the summer. And then you'll look at your board halfway through the summer and you'll say, hey man, I swear I put some wax on that thing. What happened? And it just dries up and the base eats some of it and it just goes away, man. And imagine if you didn't have any wax on that base to start with, the base of your board is just going to be drier and drier and drier, and it's really hard to recover your base from being so dry. You can't always take a 100% dry base and throw a coat of wax on it and it's back to normal and been restored. Really the key is to just always keep wax on your board. Those dry moments really do hurt the base of your board. This is kind of nerdy stuff though, but if you like to have that glide and you don't like to stick on the snow, then you know that preserving the base of your board is super important. So we're going to go ahead and just do a bunch of circles here and evenly spread out this wax. And if I need to put more on, I will, but I probably did a good job here. So we're going to spread this bad boy out. And after it's spread out, evenly distributed, that's going to be the end of our storage wax. There's no scraping. You may have to do a little bit of a scrape before before you start riding next season, but like I said, chances are a lot of this wax is just going to be absorbed into the base of your board or just dried up from the weather around you. So, you know, that's that with the storage wax. Just finished spreading out all the wax on here. Everything's looking good, and that's going to be a wrap. We've got our storage wax done. We checked our rails for any rust, got rid of all that rust before it corroded off that. We also wiped down our base and cleaned our base before we applied the storage wax. We wrapped up our boots nice and tight so they keep their form for the summer while they're waiting for us to come ride them again in the winter time. We want to store our goggles properly inside somewhere that's climate controlled. Same with our board. I know it's not always a choice about where you can store your board. Some people have to store it in the garage just because the space is, you know, a luxury. So if you gotta store it in the garage, that's that. But if you can put it in a closet somewhere inside your house, that's definitely ideal. Make sure you crack the bolts or loosen the bolts of your bindings, or just remove your bindings all the way. If you do all those things, your board will be really happy, and when you go to grab your board for next season, you'll be happy too. And that's gonna do it for today's video. We've got the Ride 2020 Super Pig here. Stay tuned for a review on this for next year. If you really want to hear a review on it for this year, let me know. I'll make a video about it. I have been riding this board for the last few months. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'm happy to answer them for you. And if you have any tips on putting your equipment away for the season or any type of storage wax or stuff like that, also share those in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.